Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is Fahmida Islam with you. Before moving on, let's look at today's top stories. Putin congratulates Obama on Independence Day. ISIS emir of suicide bombers killed. PM says cricketers glorifying Bangladesh before world. And Brazil President Rousseff unveils Rio Olympics torch. Well, those were the headlines, now the details. Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated President Barack Obama on Independence Day and expressed confidence that Russia and the United States can find solutions to international issues. In the message, Putin noted that while there are differences between Russia and the United States, Russian-American relations remain the most important factor of international stability and security. The Kremlin said Putin expressed that the two countries can find solutions to international issues and efficiently resist global threats and challenges as they base their dialogue on principles of equality and respect of each other's interests. This marks the second correspondence between the two leaders in as many weeks. On June 25, Putin called Obama to discuss the situation in Ukraine as well as other global affairs, the White House said. In the phone call, Obama stressed the need for Russia to fulfill its commitments under the Minsk agreements, which include the removal of Russian militants and mercenaries from Ukraine's territory. Reports suggest Russia has violated the agreement. Senior ISIS leader Tariq al-Harzi, a man known as the emir of suicide bombers, was killed by a coalition airstrike in Syria last month, a U.S. official said. Al-Harzi played a key logistical role for ISIS, overseeing efforts to get jihadists and weapons into Iraq and Syria to fuel the militant organization's war machine, according to U.S. authorities. The Tunisian, believed to be one of the first foreign fighters to join ISIS, also helped organize the Sunni extremist group's devastating use of suicide and vehicle-borne bombs in Iraq, the U.S. Department of Defense said. This was a big get, said Mike Rogers, a national security commentator and former chairman of the U.S. House Intelligence Committee. It'll be very disruptive to their operation for at least some period of time. The ISIS leader had been on the U.S. designated terrorist list since last year, and the State Department had offered a $3 million reward for information on him. The Pentagon said last month that al-Harzi's brother, who was also an ISIS operative, was killed in a U.S. airstrike in Mosul, Iraq on June 2015. The brother, Ali Auni al-Harzi, was seen as an intermediary between ISIS and jihadists in North Africa. The U.S. government labeled him a person of interest in the deadly attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya on September 11, 2012. She facilitated the players, coach of Bangladesh national team and cricket board officials at the Ganabhavan on Saturday. The Prime Minister awarded them 82.36 million taka by check for their recent successes. She had earlier declared that Bangladesh would win the World Cup one day. She hoped we can do that.
আমি নিজে বিশ্বকাপে ভালো খেলার জন্য 1 কোটি আর বাংলা ওয়াশ আর টি20 জন্য আরো 1 কোটি প্রায় সর্বসাকুল্যে মানে 8 কোটি টাকার মতন এটা পরে যার যার অংশ ভাগ করে আমরা দিয়ে দেব আর এর আগে আমাদের যারা এখানে প্রায় সব খেলোয়াড়দের আমরা গাড়ি দিয়েছিলাম এখন কয়েকজন বোধহয় বাকি আছে আবার নতুনও কিছু যোগ হয়েছে সবাই পাবে
Prime Minister said there were already some indications that Bangladesh would win World Cup in future. To whitewash World Cup champions or to put them to shame is indeed a big success. She said, our boys have proved to the cricketing world that Bangladesh can no longer be underestimated. She said, adding, everyone should be careful about Bangladesh. She said the Awami League's pledge to make Bangladesh a middle-income nation by 2021 had been achieved much before the target. It is already declared that we are a lower middle-income nation, and I have no doubt that Bangladesh will reach the higher tier. She said none could neglect Bangladesh as a poor country now. She said Bangladesh was progressing in every sector, and the government would do whatever needed to take Bangladesh cricket forward. The Prime Minister disclosed government's plans of establishing modern cricket stadiums in Cox's Bazar and in areas around Podda Bridge. Bangladesh cricket team's captain Mashrafi bin Murtaza and manager Khalid Mahmood Shujan presented her with a cricket bat autographed by the cricketers. The reception ceremony was followed by an iftar party, which was also attended by politicians, cabinet members, diplomats, justices, and government officials, among others. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff has unveiled the torch to be used at the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. She said the Games would bring honor and pride to the country. Ms. Rushev, who has seen her popularity plunge amid a serious economic crisis, says the country will rise to the challenge and will organize a safe and successful games. She said 12,000 people would be chosen to carry the Olympic torch through some 300 Brazilian cities next year. We are now 399 days from the opening of the Olympic Games, and on August 5, the whole world will look at us. We'll see the Olympic flame light up, Ms. Rushev said at a ceremony in Brasilia. The torch relay will begin in the Brazilian capital in May and will end at Rio's Maracanã Stadium in August at the Olympics opening ceremony. The Olympics Organizing Committee and sponsors will choose the torch bearers in the next few months. Ms. Rushev has promised security will be a priority, inviting the thousands of fans who travel to Brazil for the Football World Cup to return for the Rio Games. Rio de Janeiro will be the first South American city to host the Olympics. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that dozens more were injured in the city of Ariha. People had been gathering at the mosque to break their Ramadan fast at the time, the group said. The cause of the explosion is not yet known. An unnamed senior non-Syrian member of Al-Nusra was reportedly killed in the explosion at Salem Mosque, according to the observatory. Ariha was one of the last government strongholds in Idlib when it was captured by rebels in May. An Islamist coalition called the Jaish al-Fateh Conquest Army took control of the city after a rapid offensive. Rebels had earlier claimed a number of cities in the province, including Idlib and Jisr al-Shogor. The fall of the Ariha left most of Idlib province bordering Turkey in rebel hands. Al-Nusra is among 13 Islamist groups that came together on Thursday to launch a massive assault on the northern city of Aleppo. More than 230,000 people are believed to have been killed in Syria since the uprising against President Bashar al-Assad began in March 2011. Some 11.5 million others, more than half of the country's population, have fled their homes. Viewers, will take a short break. Do stay with us. The Tunisian town where ISIS makes militants. Saudi police kills fugitive ISIL suspect. Welcome back to Millennium TV News. Western intelligence agencies believe Tunisians head the league table of foreign fighters swelling ISIS ranks, and Tunisian authorities identify the town of Kasserine as a veritable pipeline of recruits. Once famous for its central role in the Tunisian revolution, Kasserine is now infamous as a source of radicalized young men flocking to Syria and Libya in their thousands. Just 30 kilometers, 18 miles from Tunisia's border with Algeria, Kasserine's geography makes it ideal as a meeting point for jihadists from both countries. At the ridges and crevices of the Chambi Mountains provide perfect cover for terrorist training camps in spite of the government's ongoing efforts to uproot them. In the poor Kasserine neighborhood of Al-Zuhur, one road is described to us by a local Israeli as Avenue de Jihad because he says of the sheer number of families whose sons are either missing, dead or in jail. The first thing that hits you is the number of young men hanging around in the middle of the day with nothing to do. As we pull out our cameras, some of them start to show us their scars. They say the wounds are mementos of the running battles waged with the security forces of former dictator Zain el-Abidine Ben Ali, who led Tunisia for 23 years before being ousted in 2011. They had fought for a better life, but in the post-revolution chaos, bitter poverty and unemployment have made Kasserine a fertile recruiting ground. A Saudi fugitive has been killed in a shootout with police after escaping a raid on suspected extremists. The incident came a day after a policeman was shot dead on Friday during a raid in the eastern city of Taif, in which 3 people suspected of belonging to the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant ISIL group were arrested. The operation was launched to detain Yusuf Abdulatif Shabab al-Ghamdi, 32, who escaped, but he was later tracked down in Taif by police and killed in a shootout in a home. According to the ministry, it did not specify when Ghamdi died but said he opened fire with an automatic weapon and a pistol, prompting police to shoot. According to the ministry, Ghamdi had not traveled outside the kingdom and had been jailed in the past for 6 years on criminal charges. Friday's raid came with Gulf states on alert against attacks by ISIL, which has been blamed for deadly attacks on Saudi policemen and Shia mosque bombings in both Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Gulf interior ministers on Friday held an emergency meeting in Kuwait and called for coordination to confront the serious epidemic. 3 children and a woman have been killed in 2 separate incidents in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, while Egyptian army launched new airstrikes near Sheikh Zayed, killing 12 rebels and destroying weapons and explosive caches. One of Saturday's deadly attack came in Sheikh Zayed town of northern Sinai, where 2 children and a woman were killed when a shell struck into a house. It was not immediately clear which side fired the shell, which also seriously wounded another woman and a teenage girl. In another incident, a roadside bomb targeting police and army vehicles killed a 5-year-old child in Rafah, town that borders the Palestinian Gaza Strip. 3 other children and a woman were also wounded in the blast. The violence came days after Egyptian government carried out airstrikes on Wednesday in response to one of the deadliest rebel assaults in Sheikh Zayed. The army said 17 soldiers and 100 rebels had been killed in that attack, but medical and security officials said the death toll was at least 70 people, mostly soldiers, as well as dozens of rebels. Now the Millennium Sports News. World number 1 Serena Williams survived an almighty scare at Wimbledon, battling back to beat inspired Briton Heather Watson in 3 sets and stay on course for a 21st Grand Slam title. Williams, who lifted this year's Australian and French Open crowns, was forced to dig deep in front of a raucous home crowd after an error-strewn showing against Super Watson, recovering from 3-0 down in the final set to win 6-2, 4-6 and 7-5. The 33-year-old will face her sister Venus in the last 16, their 26th career meeting, as she continues her bid for a 6th Wimbledon crown. Williams has now won 24 Grand Slam matches in a row but will hope for more consistency in the 4th round. Earlier, Maria Sharapova eased past Romanian Irina Camelia-Begu 6-4, 6-3. Barring a brief wobble in the 2nd set when the Russian was broken serving for the match at 5-1, it was a straightforward day at the office for Sharapova, who knows that it takes to lift the trophy, having claimed the title in 2004. There is only one champion in the end, and the one who raises their game is the champion. Before wrapping up, let's have a look at Millennium TV News Recap. Putin congratulates Obama on Independence Day. ISIS emir of suicide bombers killed. PM says cricketers glorifying Bangladesh before world. And Brazil President Rousseff unveils Rio Olympics torch. You're up to date so far here with our top news over here, and don't forget to log into www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you for staying with us. Allah Hafiz.